Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I'm James McGowan.
I'm Jessica Faust.
Today we are answering a YouTube viewer question. So thank you to Charles for asking us if selling a book is as simple as sending it out and waiting for a response. Or is there a more formal presentation done with follow-ups or ... open-ended?
I actually love this question.
Me too. And I mean, we've talked about every stage, but I don't feel like we've ever came at it from this angle. Like, how does it even happen? What do we do to sell a book?
Yeah, and I do think this is, this is sort of a peek behind the agent curtain, but I think this is something that even authors with agents
Should know.
Yeah, and they don't always. And, as much as we share what we do with our clients and update them on submissions and things like that, there's a lot of other stuff that we're doing that I think, I'm not going to email my author every time I do every little thing, but there's a lot of little stuff that when they think we're doing nothing, we're doing.
Right. And I sometimes forget myself, like, oh, not everybody knows what I know. Like, so when we get an offer and we're going to an author and we're telling them about, like, what is that exactly? I'm like, oh, yeah, I probably should have told you that. Here's what it is. So, like, I like that we're sort of starting from the beginning and not assuming that anybody knows what it is that we do.
So where are we starting from, like the very beginning, like the author just signed a contract with us?
Yeah, so the author just signed a contract with us. We're ready to get going. We're going to start in on our first step for most projects is revisions. We do a quick pass through, whether that's for, like quick things like fix this, fix that, or we do big developmental edits. And that's different for every book. It's different for every author, and it's different for every, like I said, book already, so.
Well, it's different for every agent too. And that's, that's something to know, that it's always different. How I work on 5 different clients is 5 different ways, but also how 5 different agents at BookEnds work or would work on those 5 clients is 5 different ways. So,
and you can give me and you the same book. We're going to edit in a different style. We're going to edit it with different notes. That's just the way the industry works.
Yeah. But for the most part, at least at BookEnds, you're always going to get some sort of edit on your book. And sometimes it could entail very detailed line notes within the manuscript itself. And sometimes it'll just be an email like, I need you to go through and do this, blah, blah, blah.
I just sent one revision letter where I'm like, I love this. It's damn near perfect. There's this one minor thing that I thought could be changed because it's a little off-putting to me, and then do a quick pass-through for revisions. And that's how simple it was.
Yep.
But then, of course, there's ones where we're sending edit letters and comments and everything. So it just...
And back and forth and back and forth.
I mean, rounds of revisions.
I have done months with authors before.
I was an intern and I got my first taste of revisions with you. We did maybe 3 or 4 rounds of revisions on a book, which is published.
That was Rosemary Simpson, right?
Yes. It was, what was the first time? Okay.
I'll go get it. Hold on.
Yeah, go get it. Oh, with the dead leave behind. I was so close.
Yeah, this was fun. And you were an intern and we did a lot of, poor Rosemary.
Well, poor Rosemary, but Rosemary now has a kick-ass book that launched a full series that is riveting every step of the way. So
yeah, we're up to 7 books in this series.
It's crazy.
And it's all set in the Gilded Age of New York. And Rosemary's a beautiful writer.
Yes.
And a historian, and all the details just come through. If you're a fan of New York and historical New York, she just brings it alive. But this was the first mystery she'd ever written.
And funny story.
I am totally going off track, but go on.
We are going off track, but this book and this process taught me how to edit historical fiction and all the things that I have to look for. And of course, it's not like it's not a formula, but it gave me that first like big taste in doing it. And it's part of the reason why I love historical fiction now. And
she was just, a champ.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we, both of us together, put her through the ringer.
But she did it. And like I said, it's a kick-ass book and it's a kick-ass series. And here we are.
But I believe that one took 5 months of editing, which is not the norm.
No, it's not. But again, it worked out. But there's very much that spectrum. And it depends on the book, the genre, the age group, all of it. There's so many different factors. But that is usually our first step. So once we have gone through whatever it looks like for you, we've gone through our full rounds of revisions, we have a project that we are super excited about, we're going to send it out on submission. This is where the ball's now in our court.
Yeah. Yep.
So the first thing I always do is I format it with a cover page that basically says it is a BookEnds title. This is how you can contact me. And then I start working on my sub list and my submission list of editors and our submission pitch letter, or the agent version of a query letter.
Yeah, and I do want to add here that one thing most agents don't do is clean up the manuscript.
Yes.
So when I am ready to add that cover page, it's because what I've gotten from the author, the comments have been removed, the track changes have been turned off and cleaned up, and this is clean, and it looks like you wrote it and sent it off, and it took no revisions. So
yeah,
it's really important to know that, because I don't get that. I will say to you, this is fantastic, we're ready to go, send me the final clean version. And I don't scroll through now 400 pages to make sure it is. So it's really your responsibility to make sure you're putting your best foot forward with that book now.
Yes, and also it's something that I like to give the author the privilege and final say of doing.
Yeah.
So I want you to finalize your book. It's not my book. Yeah, I want you to finalize everything we talked about. I want you to make all of the final decisions and send me over what you are ready for me to send to editors.
Yeah, I like the way you say that. No, that is exactly true.
Yeah, even if it's like, I will always ask the author too, if it's just like 3 typos, can I fix these and then finalize? But I will almost always send it back to the author to finalize, even if it's just ceremonious. It's something that I like to do.
Well, I mean, I don't want to make a weird mistake finalizing your book that your name is on and your name is going to go on. Like, that's why I don't touch it. Once you send me and say this is ready to go out, I don't touch it anymore. It's your book.
And I have 19 million files, so I want to make sure that that's the right file. It says final. It means final. We're ready to go.
Yes. And for me, that includes putting the package together. So, you know, there are certain projects that I submit on proposal. And in that case, I don't want to be the one to take 14 different files and try to combine them.
Right.
I want the chapters, then I want the synopsis, and then if this is a series, I want blurbs for future books, and I want one file that you're happy with, so that, again, you are the final touch on this file.
Exactly. It should always go through you.
Mm-hmm.
But once we've gotten that file, probably a little before we get that, we start making our submission list. And
when do you start yours?
Well, it depends. If it's an author that I've offered on, when I'm offering. If it's a client, then usually closer to when we finish revisions. But my wheels are turning. I just tend to, especially lately, just write it down at the last second, and then do my revisions of a submission list, because I always do revisions of a submission list.
Always. Well, and as we're doing revisions, you know, I'm always keeping up on market news and what's selling, and I'm always jotting notes to myself when I see a deal that, oh, maybe that's an editor I need to think about for this book. Oh, I should think about, I mean, I could have 5 editors at one house. Right.
And that's the thing about pulling together a submission list, is that, again, it's always different, but there are so many little nuances. So it could be that Jessica and I both love historical, but I'm looking for like 1920s and Jessica's looking for 1930s. So I'll know to go to me, you know? So it's a matter of pulling together all of the little tidbits of information that we've been shared or we've learned or anything like that, and then prioritizing it in terms of who's going to get it first and who's going to get it when. So
which can be, for me, one of the most fun parts of that job, putting together that list. You what?
It's my absolute favorite part. There's something that like challenges you every single time.
Yeah.
It's really cool also to just, the other day I sat down to make a submission list for a picture book, and I didn't even open Slack. Like, it just flowed out of me. And it's really cool to get to that point where you're just like, I got it. This is perfect.
But I'm always challenging myself to check too, because I don't always want to go to my tried and true people or, you know, so I'm always like, oh, okay, but, you know, I do like that person, but I wonder if there's somebody else there who might be hungrier or more interested in this. Or,
and that's my revision process. That's when I'm like, okay, well, let me check if this person's the right person. Like, they came first of mind, but is there somebody else that might work better?
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. I love that part too.
Yeah, and I think that's where we get to be creative when we're revising, but that's our turn. Like we have to like
Yeah.
really pull everything together and show up on that. And then we do the pitch letter. I always save the pitch letter for last, and that's probably a little bit of procrastination, but it's also for me. I very much tailor my pitch letter. Sometimes like current events or something like that. So I like to do that at the last possible second to have it ready to go. And I will always use an author's query letter as a starting point just to sort of get their tone and their voice in.
Yeah, I always cut and paste the query letter. And so I have a pitch letter doc, and I cut and paste the query letter. And then above that is where I start to type mine. And sometimes I'll take stuff up and delete it.
Yeah.
There have been times I have used an author's query letter nearly verbatim. But a lot of times I'm taking some of that author's voice, but also adding in my own selling voice, my own, like, how can I sell this as the salesperson for this book?
And also, a lot of the books that we shop, they're big books. Like they have a lot going on in them. And I want like that, like this, it's nice to have a starting point. No matter how good we are at writing pitch letters, it's nice to say that's what we should focus on. And now I can reframe it and rewrite it with completely different words, but that's my central point that I need to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. And the pitch letter, to be honest, can flow.
Yes.
I mean, there are certain pitch letters that I'm like, boom, that was good.
There are certain pitch letters, though, especially when we were in the office, where we would just be like, okay, I'm sending this to you for a 13th time, and I just need you to tell me if this works or if this doesn't work or what you think. And we have gone back and forth a lot on pitch letters.
Yeah, I think there was one time when I was standing there, and I actually think I put my head on my desk, and you were like, are you okay? And I'm like, it's a pitch letter. I just couldn't do it.
That is one of the things that I do miss, I won't lie. But yeah, like picture book ones flow out of me for some reason. They feel like very fun and simple to do. It's a novel that I'm just like, okay, you got me here. Let me take the 24-hour rule and come back to this tomorrow.
There is certain cover copy, which is what our pitch letter is, which is a little more formulaic. I can pull a cozy mystery off my shelf and take my new book and sort of fashion my pitch after somebody else's cover copy. But when it comes to doing pitches for upmarket or literary fiction or psychological suspense, for example, oof. I can really beat myself up over those.
Especially when you're like, okay, I want to preserve this for the reader and I want to make sure this, and this is really like what's going to hook someone in, and this is what makes it stand out. Like balancing all of that is tough, which we're preaching to the choir here because every author watching this video is like, yep. But
it is also why we rely on each other. Because, I get to the point where I'm like, but I love this part of the book. And you're like, I don't get why this is in the pitch letter. And I'm like, you're right.
Yep.
It doesn't need to be in there.
Exactly. Okay, so now we've got our final documents, we've got our submission list, and we've got our pitch letter. Usually for me, they're all lined up in 3 different windows on my computer with my email open at the bottom. So then we do the actual act of submitting the book. And that's typing in the emails, putting in our pitch, personalizing it where we can, and clicking send.
Yeah, and sometimes we've done the work ahead of time. We have a newsletter that goes out to editors only. Don't ask if you can get it, because you can't unless you're an editor. Then ask if you can get it. We'd love to put you on the list. It goes out to editors. That includes a lot of the information. We get a lot of requests off that. Nowadays we are having Zoom meetings with editors and lunches. Well, not having lunches now, but if we have lunches, and we're pitching books then. So some of those people come sort of preemptively on our list.
Yeah.
Phone pitches I think there are some agents that do them a lot more than others. I have found that they are much more time consuming, depending on the project, and a lot of editors would prefer not to be cold called. And I think if every agent was phone pitching, editors would do nothing but sit on the phone all day and go, yes, send it to me, yes, send it to me. So we tend to primarily email our pitches over. depending on the situation. But, there are plenty of times when I'm on the call with an editor, I'll be like, oh, hey, by the way, I have this book. And so when we send the material, sometimes we will pitch it and attach it. And sometimes we will just pitch it and wait for the editor to request it. And all of it is strategic and is dependent on the book, the genre, the editor, or relationship, previous conversations we've had. There's so many variables into why we're doing it the way we're doing it. But to sort of simplify why we might not attach the manuscript, for me anyway, it's that if I attach the manuscript and an editor comes back and says, this isn't really something I'm not interested in, I'm going to pass. Because they had the manuscript, I have to assume they read it and they're passing on the manuscript. If it's a pitch and they're like, this isn't really right for me, I'm going to pass, nobody at that house has seen the manuscript, so it gives me an opportunity to send it still to somebody else within that house.
That's not it, right? Like, that's not where it ends. That's not how a book gets sold. That is literally the first part of the actual submission process. So after that, we are sort of managing and upkeeping as we go, right? We are sending out more submissions. We're fielding rejections. We are, and when we field rejections, we're getting new MSWLs and all of that. We're nudging and following up. So that process will keep going until we get that offer. And we are hustling for that offer for every book. We are trying to get new submissions out there, new eyes, and drum up interest and keep things fresh.
It's also constantly keeping an eye, because once we develop that list of editors we're going to submit to, that is ever changing.
Yes.
So I may have put James on my list of editors I want to submit to, and then, but I haven't sent it to him yet. And then a deal comes through from Tracy, and I think, based on this deal, I actually think Tracy might be better. And I scratch James off and I send it to Tracy instead. So we are constantly thinking about your book and where is the best spot for it and how we can get to that spot.
Right. And one thing I do want to say too is that every book informs another book that I'm submitting. So if I'm submitting client A's book and I get responses that might lean more towards client B's book, then I might not send it to that editor, or I might decide to send it. So it's like a very fluid process.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, our clients are all sort of helping each other, even though they don't know it. They're all working together in some way. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that is what we do until we get the offer. We will take that process all the way there. And that is one of the most exciting things, I think. Like, doing all that work and just receiving an offer at the end is rewarding and exciting and really celebratory.
And I know authors are thinking right now, well, how long does that take? I mean, in my career, I have gotten offers in 24 hours. And I have had books that have taken 2 years for one book.
Yes.
So,
and by comparison, in my career, the same thing has happened. Like, after a year and 18 months of submitting, and I have sold the book after a week of submitting. Like, sometimes there's just no rhyme or reason to it.
Most of the time, you could have this book that you think is really hot and nobody touches it. And then 18 months later, someone calls and is like, oh.
So we hope that was helpful. That's a quick peek behind the curtain of everything an agent is doing to get your book that offer that we so desperately want. So if you have any other questions about that process, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Bye.